Hey everyone, it's Ross. I hope you're all doing well. I'm going to keep this nice and short, but this is a video of me recently speaking at an extreme mobility fundraiser, or EXMO for short. And for those who don't know what EXMO is a nonprofit organization dedicated to empowering blind athletes through the use of extreme sports. And I've been a part of EXMO for many, many years, and for those who have been around my channel since the very beginning, the very first video I uploaded was me speaking at an extreme mobility camp, basically of me telling how I went blind and the struggles and what I've learned from it. And that's pretty much what this video is, except, like fast forward like 4 or 5 years later. So if you guys do like this video, definitely please share it. I want a lot of people to hear about EXMO. EXMO is a great organization. Anyway, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Constructive criticism is definitely appreciated. Things I may need to work on that I may not realize, all that kind of stuff. So thank you for watching.
Thank you. Test. 1, 2. Okay. Hello everyone. As you guys know, my name is Ross Miner, and thank you guys so much for coming to EXMO. EXMO is such a ginormous part of my life. I can't even describe it. I don't even know where to begin, so I guess I'll begin when I used to be able to see. I wasn't born blind, as you guys know. I was born sighted with a normal family, a father, mother, and a brother, and a dog. I had a great education in elementary. I had a best friend, and I used to play video games, and I used to play soccer, but all of that kind of came to a sudden halt when I was told that my parents were getting a divorce. And my brother was obviously really upset about it, and I was almost too young to really understand what this could have meant for my future. And this is kind of tragic, but on June 14th, 2006, my father came in my room while I was asleep and shot me in the head, and then shot my brother Ryan when he was asleep, and then committed suicide. And so I was rushed to the hospital, and I basically went to bed sighted and woke up blind. People ask me all the time, what's the last thing I remember? And the last thing I remember is having my 8th birthday party, because it was just a couple weeks before I went blind. And so I woke up in the hospital, and I remember just thinking it was some crazy dream. It was almost like my eyes were closed, but obviously they were open, I just couldn't see. And I remember hearing all these people walking around me, and it was so disorienting. And I remember, just counting, I don't know why I counted specifically to 13, but I counted to 13, closed my eyes, and I said, all right, I know once I reach 13, I will open my eyes and I can see. And as you guys know, that wasn't the case. Once I woke up from my surgery, my mom came over and told me that my father had committed suicide, my father had shot me, and my brother had died. And when you're 8 years old, how can you even comprehend something like that? Someone who literally was responsible for your conception basically tried to take you out of the world with him. And that basically began the whole issue of me having trust issues. And after I went blind, I lost my left eye. My retina and optic nerve were severed. I lost my smell, and I had a damaged tendon in my left hand. So I had to undergo weeks, I think even a couple of months of physical therapy, to the point where it was hard to walk. But through it all, I had my family and my friends and the community at my school doing fundraisers for me and paying for all of my medical bills so that I could get better. And my mom, she has been such an amazing advocate for me. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for her advocating for me, all while going through this tragic loss of losing her husband and her first son. So the years go by, and I returned back to elementary school, but I had to learn how to use a cane. I had to learn Braille. I had to learn how to interact with people as, a blind person in a sighted world. And I remember the first time that I got my very first cane, I developed a fear of adults. That's how traumatic it was for me, that when the man, Mr. Bob Hughes, came over to give me my very first cane, I wouldn't come out from under the blanket. So he had to give me the cane under the blanket so I can feel it, and then he eventually coaxed the blanket off my head so he could teach me my very first steps into my new world. And so when I had to learn Braille, the public school system offered to teach it to me, but on the condition that I would have to leave the private school from all my peers that I was used to before I was sighted or before I was blind. And my mom didn't want to put me through that, so eventually we decided to move down to Florida School for the Deaf and Blind down in Florida, because we felt like it was the only way for me to feel normal. I felt like an outcast, which I don't want to say it's normal, but it's normal for kids to not know how to interact with a blind person. But regardless if it's normal or not, I felt isolated, I felt lost, I had trust issues, and eventually, as I became like a middle schooler and then a teenager, I became bitter and I became depressed, and my relationship with my mom was going downhill, and I was just angry at the world. That why is this happening to me? Why do I not have a father, and why do I not have a brother? Why does everyone else get to experience this, but I don't? And so I moved down to Florida with my mom, and I attended Florida School for the Deaf and Blind. And this is where I heard about extreme mobility. And when I was first told that there was a ski trip where you would ski down a mountain blind, I was like, you're crazy. Like, I couldn't even drive a four-wheeler when I could see. What makes you think I could ski down a mountain blind? Well, I reached 9th grade, which was the entry grade to go out to Colorado, and I got accepted. And I brought my whole depressed and bitter and angsty teenage self up to that camp. And I would imagine it certainly showed the first year. Because, the story how I got lost in that building, I could have just asked someone. I was like, no, I'm going to figure it out, blah, blah, blah. And you guys know how that happened. But while I was there, I met Brian and Braden and Mindy and all these wonderful people that more or less became my second family now. I haven't been out to Exmo in 2 years because I've been busy with the Paralympics, but it's my home away from home. When I was there, I could tell that people cared about me there, that it was a tangible feeling. I remember one of my years at Exmo, everyone was winding down to bed, and Brian offered to take me out to McDonald's because I was a growing boy and I was hungry. And while we were driving in the truck, I just thought to myself, like, this man cares about me. He's taking me out to get food, and it's something that brought tears to my eyes because that's something I hadn't experienced since I was 8 years old. And Braden is like a brother to me. I didn't have the experience of a brother that I could have had growing up because my brother was taken from me. The years go on, and I try out Exmo West Coast. And again, if you were to tell me that I was to go jet skiing or surfing or water skiing, I'd be like, you're crazy, that's insane. But through all of this, meeting completely random strangers, I began to learn to put my trust into people. I remember the first time I went jet skiing with Grant. it was an amazing experience. You know, I have never felt that freedom since I went blind. As soon as I got on that jet ski, you know, to have the feeling where Grant's just like, pedal to the metal, floor it, why not? It was just amazing because I never got to experience that. You know, part of it was because I was blind, and part of it was because I put these barriers on myself, on my mind, on my heart, that I wouldn't be able to trust anyone ever again after, you know, what my own father did to me. But I have my second family out here that I'm allowed to put my trust in, and it's helped me trust other people. And it's just an amazing experience. So fast forward even a few more years, I graduate high school. You know, I was on the high school and middle school swim team, and I took a break from swimming. You know, I was just like, all right, time to go to college like everyone else and get a degree and whatever. And that's not how I actually feel, but. And then I had my mom say, you should try out for the Paralympics. I'm like, I don't even know what the Paralympics are. And it's actually a crazy coincidence. My mom used to work at Citibank, and while she was there, Citibank does a lot of fundraising for the Paralympics. And while she was there, a guest speaker had come, Brad Snyder, who was a gold medalist blind Paralympic swimmer. And so I skipped a college class that day to go, you know, listen to his speech. And after that, I met him, and he was basically the tipping point of getting me to join the Paralympics. And so I was like, okay, well, what do I even do from here? And so I found out that I had to qualify in North Carolina, as you guys heard in the video. I had to qualify for a race to, you know, earn a spot on the Paralympic swim team. And I hadn't swum in probably a year since leaving high school, and so, you know, it wasn't free. We had to hire a coach. It cost a ton of money, and we could only afford two 1-hour practices a week. So I could only practice 2 hours a week because that was all we could afford. But nevertheless, that's all I could do, so that's what I did. And you know, I wouldn't be able to do any of this without the support of my mother. You know, it's not like I just woke up in the hospital bed blind. I was like, all right, time to live my life. I had all my family members and all my friends supporting me. And so we set this mission for me to try out for the Paralympics. And so I went up to Charlotte, North Carolina, where I had gone blind, where my life was turned upside down. And I more or less made a qualifying time for the emerging team, and from there I applied to the Olympic Training Center, and within 2 weeks I was flying out there. I dropped all my classes for the spring semester. I was like, all right, it's time to do this. And I make it sound like, you know, it was easy coasting from there, but it was quite the opposite. You know, at the Olympic Training Center, it's basically what it says. It's top-level athletes swimming to become the best in the world. And while all that was going on, my last time at Winter Exmo, Brian wanted me to share my story on the last day. And I said, why would you want me to do that? Like, I'm just a normal guy, I'm a geeky teenager. Like, what do I have to offer? But with enough convincing, I got up there and more or less spilled my entire heart out to, you know, my family, not just some strangers, like my family, some that I just met that week, but they became a part of our growing family. And I spilled my heart out to my family and just explained all the struggles that I was going through, how I couldn't trust people, how I was jealous that I didn't have a family, how I didn't have many friends in high school, how I was depressed and how I had PTSD, and how I was just jealous of everyone else and not happy with myself. And I thankfully had one of my friends record that video because I posted it online, and from there the video blew up and a bunch of people saw it, and I got to share my message, and it really sparked this passion for inspiring people, motivating people, you know, speaking in public. And if it weren't for Brian, if it weren't for Exmo, none of this would have happened. I probably wouldn't even be in the Paralympics right now. I wouldn't be out here. I wouldn't be the man I am today if it weren't for extreme mobility. And so I move out to the Olympic Training Center, and it's hard. It is so hard. I'm competing with these athletes I'm training with these athletes that have already won gold medals, that have already won silver medals, that know what they're doing. And I'm some guy who's only swam in high school and middle school seasonally, not year round, who just comes in and starts swimming. And I go to the weight room and I don't even know how to lift, and my body hurts, my shoulders hurt. I develop bursitis in my left shoulder, you know? And it doesn't even stop there. It got even more difficult. With that video that I posted online, I had people telling me that I was amazing and that I was great and that I was gonna do great things, but I didn't feel it. I didn't feel that in my heart that I could do that. Just because someone puts you up on a pedestal doesn't mean that it's actually true. And I felt that more and more and more when I was at the Olympic Training Center, breaking my body day in and day out, getting up at 6 in the morning, going to bed at 9, and just repeating, waking up, eat, swim, eat, fall asleep, wake up, lift, eat, fall asleep, over and over again. And even though I had these little time drops or these successes through my Paralympic career, I still couldn't compete with all the positive reinforcement that I was getting with online. And it was hard to keep my career going, keep my ego in check, and actually feel like I was good enough to compete. And you know, it wasn't easy coasting, it wasn't easy going. Like, this happened last month. You see me right now, I look like I have my life together, but it's just a facade. Last month, and even before last month, the last month was the biggest point where I wanted to quit. I wanted to quit. I wasn't in the Paralympics for the money, and at that point I didn't even want the glory. It got to the point where I had packed up everything and I was looking for apartments. That's how close I was to quitting. And then Brian called me and said, "Hey, can you speak at Exmo?" And I said, "Sure," but in my mind I said, this guy is crazy. He has no idea what's going on in my life right now. I feel like a fraud. And then I have other people online asking me to write articles about me, and I say, sure, but the whole time I feel like a fraud because my body is hurting, my mind, my depression is getting worse, and I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere in the Paralympics. And then I thought to myself, and it was even bolstered by what Alyssa said, or what Alyssa first sang. I think the song was called "You Make Me Brave." And just an hour ago, I realized that Exmo makes me brave. I thought to myself, the problem is that I have all this motivation coming externally, but not internally. I don't believe in myself. And then I thought to myself, if I can ski and snowboard down a mountain, if I can jet ski, and if I can surf, then why can't I swim back and forth and splash around in the pool? And why can't I pick up a big hunk of metal and put it back down over and over again? I was gonna see this through to the end. All my life, I had quit on things. In high school, I cheated on my very last exam and got caught. All right? In college, I dropped out to go to the Olympic Training Center, and then I was gonna quit on that? I was becoming a quitter. And then I thought to everything I did at Exmo, and that's where my motivation internally came from, was my family at Exmo, who inspired me to go on this extreme sports path to begin with. And like I said, if I can do all those extreme sports, why can't I do this? Why can't I just see it through the end? You know, people made me think that I had to be #1 in the entire world to be something. But if I just see this through to the end, then that'll make me something. If I can make it down the mountain on skis, then I accomplished something. And that's where I am right now because of Expo. This happened just a month ago when I was planning my speech out here. I was planning my speech and I just threw the speech out the window because this is me speaking from my heart. And even then, that all happened last month. I was swimming in the pool. I got out and I said to my coach, I said, I'm done. With tears in my eyes, just crying because of how badly I felt about myself, because how bad my depression had got. I just said, I'm done. I just walked out. And I promised myself after that whole incident that I'm not gonna walk out on myself just like my father walked out on me. And all of that is because of Expo inspired me to do all of this. Yeah, my mom inspired me. Yeah, Brad Snyder inspired me. But before that, it was Expo that was there for me. It was my second family. It was the people that were inspiring me to ski down the mountain, to go surfing, to go four-wheeling in Colorado, all of that. And so now I ask you guys have the opportunity to make that happen for the next person. Imagine where I wouldn't be if I didn't have Exmo. You know, I had the option to just sit around and do nothing with my life and become part of that statistic. But I'm not gonna let that happen because I'm gonna make it to Tokyo. It doesn't matter if I medal, I'm gonna make it and become a Paralympic swimmer. And then I'm gonna get a degree in software engineering. It all just stems from Exmo believing in me. And so I ask you, please find it in your hearts to donate to this cause. It is such an amazing cause, and I'm so grateful for having this.
I had so much fun riding in the truck, driving from the airport to here, and hearing more of what he's going through with the Olympics. And some of the stuff just blew me away. Yeah. Tell me where you are ranked in the world right now.
As of now, I'm probably 10th in the world, according to So I'm currently, let's see, my best 50 freestyle is 28.6, and I'm probably, I'm 0.4 seconds away from getting to national B team, which is like the next step up where I start getting paid, where I start getting health insurance and all that. And then from there is probably one more second until I'm probably top 3 in the world. That's all it takes. And I was ready to quit out on that, but I'm not gonna do that anymore. Yeah.
It's scattered all over the place. Stuff all over the place.
It's scattered all over the place, but see, this is something I'm so used to at this point that I forget that not a lot of people know about this. But for the 50 free, which is an all-out sprint, it's from one end of the pool to the other, it's 50 meters. The goal is to do that in 0 breaths, no breaths whatsoever. And so that's the goal I have to do. And because even breathing just a tiny bit will slow you down, and that could cost the race for me, you know? And, well, besides that, at points, I'm even jealous of sighted people, you know? That's probably one of my biggest flaws, is probably jealousy of sighted people, because not only do I have to worry about all this technique while I'm swimming, but I also have to worry about even swimming straight. If I don't swim straight, I hit the lane lines, and you guys probably don't know, but those things are sharp. I've had people ask me if I'm not even joking, I've had people ask me if I cut myself because of all the cuts I have on my arms, and because sometimes I get out of the pool with blood running down my hands. when I say it literally cost me blood, sweat, and tears to get where I am. It's true. I've bled, I've obviously sweat. I've gone to my room and cried because I'm like, why am I putting myself through this? So.
I'll tell you what, theres nothing about Tokyo that I'm interested in, but if you make it to Tokyo, I'm buying a ticket.
But thank you guys so much for.
One last thing. This is really going back and forth, but
Yeah.
one of the biggest moments that Exmo's ever had was at the Holly Bowl. I'm gonna leave that. I want you to close with that.
You're right.
Talk about that.
Yeah, I do want to talk about this. So when I mentioned that I struggle putting my trust in people, you know, it's still something that I struggle with, but this is to the extent that I've trusted Exmo because of how close of family they are to me. Like, I can't even express it, but let's see, a couple years ago at Summer Exmo, no, it wasn't last camp, but anyway, at Summer Exmo, you know, I had gotten really close with all the staff and all my family members, and I was going through another depression phase, and I began questioning why my father could even do such a thing. Like, what brings someone to that mindset? And my mom had always told me that my father wrote a suicide note, but I had never had the courage to actually have her read it to me because A, I was scared, and B, I didn't even trust my mom to read it to me. And so on the last night of Exmo, after we went to see Chicago, I had my mom send me the suicide note in the form of pictures, and I gathered around with all the trainers, and I trusted them enough to read it out loud to me, and then we just talked about it and hugged over it and cried over it. And I had never, and I mean never, done that with anyone else. Not even my closest friends back home, not even with my mom. I was always just closed off in a hard shell of what I used to be before I went blind. And Exmo has basically broken open that shell and made me responsible, or made me the man I am today. And that night when we read those notes was probably the turning point of who I am today. And I remember in the note, my father said that he did it, you know, to hurt my mom as much as possible. And I pretty much vowed to myself that I would use my story to motivate people as much as possible, to inspire people as much as possible, because for someone who could put someone else through that, there's no way that I'm going to become what my father is. And that's all the experiences that I've had with Exmo. I mean, I could talk on and on and on, but I don't want to waste everyone's time. But Exmo is just an incredible family to me, and I'm so glad that I could even spare this weekend to come out and see them, because it's been way, way too long. Thank you, guys.
My son.